Hi there, this is Abby from CauseIQ. In this video, I'm going to teach you how you can use CauseIQ to find funding opportunities for your nonprofit. We know that finding new grants for your organization can be a challenge, and it's really important that you spend time doing the research on potential funders to make sure that they align with your organization's mission, the programs that you might operate, and of course, your current funding needs. So there are a few different ways that our customers use CauseIQ to do this. The first is to discover where peers or organizations just like theirs are getting their grants from. The second is to search for specific types of foundations, meaning private foundations or corporate foundations or foundations in specific states or cities. And the third is to do in-depth research into the grant making of a specific foundation or to look at the grant making activity of multiple foundations at once. Now, keep in mind that the grant information that you'll find in CauseIQ is coming from Schedule I of electronically filed Form 990s and Part 15 of the 990 PF, also those that are filed electronically. So let's dive in then and take a look at the different ways that you can use CauseIQ to find funding. Let's start by putting together a peer search. This can be a really effective strategy to help you find new funders that are already funding and making grants to nonprofits very similar to your own or your peers. To do so, we're going to use CauseIQ's Foundation Search tool. To access the Foundation Search, navigate to this new Foundation Search button in the upper right of your dashboard. Before we dive in and put together this peer search, let's take a quick look at how the Foundation Search is laid out. So at the top of the page here, you'll see a section with filters. There are about 24 foundation search filters available to help you narrow down on specific kinds of funders and grants that they make. The 4 most commonly used filters are pinned to the top. This includes the foundation types filter, the funding focus filter, the grant recipient location filter, and the grant amounts filter. The See All Filters button here is where you can access all the rest of the filters that we have available. And it's also where you can set up advanced queries. So for example, maybe you want to exclude a certain type of foundation from the private foundation segment. Moving down the page here, you'll see a section with 3 different tabs. So the Foundations tab, as you start to add filters, these results are going to dynamically update and show the results, the funders that meet that search criteria. Similarly, the Grants tab is also going to update anytime you add filters to show the specific grants made by the funders in the Foundations tab that meet whatever further grantee and grant criteria you have on your search. The Download tab enables our Pro subscribers to download lists of funders, the grants that they make, as well as personnel and board members at those foundations, all from within the Foundation Search tool. Now let's head back up to the top and put together our search. For this peer search, we're going to use the example of a New York metro-based animal shelter that's medium-sized, so between $1 million and $10 million in revenues, that's looking for grants of at least $2,500. So they're going to want to put together a peer search around organizations similar to theirs. To do this, you'll need to add grant recipient filters, at least 2 of those, to put together an effective search that segments funders based on their giving to nonprofits similar to yours. So let's get started. I'm going to add a foundation types filter for private foundations. And that's just a 1-click filter add. You can see it added this green filter pill down below. That lets me know I've successfully added the filter. Next up, I'm going to add a funding focus filter for animal shelters. Now, if the value that I'm looking for isn't displayed, you can just click on the drop-down and search for the keyword of the category you're looking for. Grant recipient location filter. Similarly, if the option that you're looking for isn't displayed, you can just type on in the drop-down to find it. And you can see when I type New York, several different options pop up. And this is because CauseIQ's location filters enable you to search for state, county, metro area, and city, all in the same filter. So just make sure after you type in that location that you're selecting the option that you want. Next, I'm going to add a grant amounts filter with a minimum of $2,500. So you can see I've added 4 filters so far, but we're not done yet. We need to add a couple more grant recipient filters to make this a really effective peer search. So click into the See All Filters button. This opens the advanced search. This is where you can access all 24+ foundation search filters that we have available. Couple different ways you can find filters here. You can search for them by name or value in the upper left search box here, or you can scroll through the list and see all the different filters available and just choose whichever ones you want to add here. I'm going to type in grant recipient. This is going to allow you to see all the different grant recipient filters that we have available in the system. And I'm going to select this grant recipient type filter. And I could either type in to the top what I'm looking for, or you would find it in the list below. And here's the animal shelters value. That's what I'm looking for. I'm going to add that as a filter. Next up, I want to make sure I'm putting together a peer segment based on other animal shelters of my organization's size. So again, I'm going to type in grant recipient. And this time I'm going to grab the grant recipient revenues filter. And I'm going to add a range here of 1 million to 10 million. So maybe our example organization has revenues of around 4, 5, or 6 million. I can add this range to catch peers that are just a little bit smaller and those that are just a little bit larger. I'm going to add that as a filter. You can see over on the right here, it's showing me all the filters currently applied to this search. And I'm going to add one more from the advanced search. It's our most recent grants only filter. And this enables me to drill down on funders that made these grants in their most recent tax year, because the foundation search tool actually includes several years of grant data. So we want to make sure we're looking at the more recent funders to these animal shelters. I'm going to select yes. And you can see it's narrowed me down to 64 matching foundations and 113 corresponding grants. So let's check out our results here. You'll find an explain results link next to your filters added. This pulls up a Venn diagram that enables you to visually understand where your search results fall in respect to the 3 different types of filters we have available. And in this example, we are using all 3 filter types, which is great. We're right in the center here. Down below, our foundations tab is showing us 64 matching foundations that match this search criteria that we created. So this is going to be 64 private foundations that in the most recent tax year made grants of at least $2,500 to New York metro-based animal shelters with revenues between $1 and $10 million. So the foundations tab displays 10 results per page. Down at the bottom, I can page through all the results here. Each individual foundation listing has some data displayed. And then over on the right, you'll see this My Saved List dropdown for each of them. If you are putting together a list of prospects, you can click on that list drop down there, and you can check off the name of a list you want to add it to. You can create a new list very easily. And there's also an exclude foundation button. So going through the list of results, you may see a funder that maybe you're already working with. So of course you don't need them on a prospect list. Or maybe you just know that funder is not a good fit for your nonprofit and you want to remove them from your results. You would just click that exclude foundation button, and it's now going to remove that one foundation from your results by using an EIN filter for that funder set to exclude. There's also over on the upper right a link to sort. We've got a lot of different sorting options. So maybe you want to sort these funders based on their assets. Maybe you want to look at which of these funders are making the most grants to the segment. And of course, Amazon Smile Foundation at the top here. I'm going to exclude them because of course that's now defunct. All right, so we've got 62 foundations here. Let's go into the grants tab to see the corresponding grants. So the grants tab is going to show me the grants that meet this criteria, the grant criteria. So in this case, at least $2,500 that went to other New York metro area animal shelters. So I've got a column for the amount here, the grant maker, this is the name of the foundation, the recipient, the grantee, these are your peers. So scrolling through there, you're likely going to recognize a lot of other organizations that you know that work in the same segment, the fiscal year the grant was made, and then a description as provided by the funder. So So I could sort this information. Let's say I want to know what are the biggest grants going to this segment of my peers. I can click on that amount column header, and it's going to sort largest to smallest. Of course, I could go the other way too and sort smallest to largest. Smallest grant, of course, is going to be $2,500 because we set that $2,500 minimum grant amount criteria here with this filter. All right, so a common next step at this point after putting together a peer search, before you go any further, I highly recommend that you save your search. So you'll find a save button up in the navigation bar here. Click that, give that search a name. If you continue to add filters or edit filters, you can update the existing search or create a new one. But saving search is always a best practice in CausIQ. All right, so next up, coming back to the grants tab, let's click on the profile page of a peer so you can see how you can continue to do in-depth research on peers. I'm going to click on the name of one of these organizations, Animal Haven, and this is going to bring me to their profile page. So I've got their name at the top, EIN. You can see they're a $3.6 million organization, and that's of course because we added that criteria around the revenues. So this would be one of your peers. So scrolling down to the bottom, where you're going to want to come when doing peer research is the funding tab. This is where you can see where they're getting their money from. So you can see CausIQ breaks it down by grants and contributions, program service income, and then investments and other. If they had operated any fundraising events, that information would be reported here, coming from Schedule G. And then down below, we're going to get the list of foundations that made grants to them. So we can see the grant maker name in this column here on the left, the tax period for when the grant was made, the description of the grant, and the amount. And you can click the Show All button to see the full list of donors, foundation donors. So this is a great place to come to do research on a peer that you know about in your segment or that you've discovered through creating a peer search in CausIQ to find foundations that are already making grants to a similar organization. So they may be receptive to a request from your organization. So let's now head back to the foundation search so that we can take a look at the second way to find funding with CausIQ, which is searching for specific types of foundations. In this approach to finding funding with CausIQ, we're going to put together a search for specific types of foundations using characteristics of the foundations themselves. So unlike the peer search that we just looked at, instead of focusing mostly on characteristics of the nonprofits being supported, how large they are, where they're located, et cetera, we're going to really focus in on characteristics of the foundations. So this might come into play if you are a local nonprofit and you want to connect with funders that are local to you in your local area, whether that's community foundations or discovering family foundations that are in your community. You want to be looking at specific types of foundations that way. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to add a foundation types filter. Let's use family foundations as our example. And as a funding focus, let's look for family foundations that are focused on supporting arts organizations, arts, cultural, humanities organizations in the Los Angeles metro area. Okay, now I'm going to click on this See All Filters button to go back into my advanced search. And this is where I'm going to add a filter to tell the system to only show me those family foundations that they themselves are located in Los Angeles, because I want to look for the local funders around me. A lot of times local funders can have a higher propensity to support local organizations. And as a nonprofit, you just want to make sure that you're connecting with those local funders. So let's find the foundation location filter. I could either search for it using the search box here, but this filter is also located near the top of the list. So I can just click there. And I'm going to add Los Angeles Metro. and add that as my filter. So you can see it's giving me a preview that I have 282 foundations that match my search criteria so far. Maybe we want to add some additional foundation criteria to this. So for example, CausIQ has a foundation size filter. I click on that. This gives me a real landscape view of what this funder segment looks like. So for family foundations located in the Los Angeles area that focus on arts organizations, the vast majority of them are mid-sized foundations between $1 million and $50 million in assets. I think I'll focus there since there are the most potential funders in that group. So I'm going to go ahead and click off medium. All right. And then perhaps I also want to add a total number of grants made filter and set a minimum so that I'm identifying funders that are making a certain number of grants to this segment, not just a few. Maybe I'll set a minimum of 5 grants. Okay. And then lastly, I do like to add a most recent grants only filter. This enables you to see funders that made grants in the most recent tax year versus grants made several years ago. So I'm going to click most recent grants and select the yes option there. And let's show our results. Okay, so with these 7 filters, we've narrowed down on these private family foundations that are located in the Los Angeles metro area and are making grants to Los Angeles arts cultural organizations. So we can scroll through the list of 185 foundation results here. Of course, you've got the buttons along the bottom to page through the results. You can add organizations to lists. Clicking on this My Save List dropdown, either creating a new list if you don't have one created already, or just adding a foundation to an existing list. And then you can exclude foundations individually by clicking this Exclude Foundation button. Perhaps you know that you recognize a funder that you've already reached out to, and you know it's not going to be a good fit, or maybe they're already one of your foundation donors, and so you don't need them to be on any kind of prospecting list. You can just click that Exclude Foundation button, and that one singular organization will then be pulled out of your results using this foundation EIN filter set to exclude. We can sort the results any way we want. And then our grants tab here is going to show us the specific grants made by those funders to the arts cultural organizations in LA. These columns are sortable, so I can click on amount to see the highest, the largest grant in this segment, as well as smallest. And I can see the name of the funder, the recipient organization, the fiscal year the grant was made, and then a description of the grant as provided by the funder. From here, our pro customers might be interested in coming to the download tab and downloading either a listing of the grants made. So that's going to be everything in that grants tab. Alternatively, you could download just the list of foundations. You can see which columns would be included here. Or you might want to pull out a list of key staff and board members at the foundations. And that's the second way to find funding with CausIQ. Next up, we're going to take a look at how you can conduct in-depth research into the grant-making activity of foundations to see if your nonprofit would be a good fit for their funding priorities. Conducting in-depth research into foundations grant making is a really important step in the prospect research process. You need to make sure that the foundations you're taking the time to reach out to are a good potential fit for your nonprofit. So for example, you want to know what kinds of nonprofits do they tend to support? What size are the grants that they make? What kinds of programs do they tend to fund? Where are their grantees located? Making sure that these things align with your nonprofit is key. So the first step is going to be accessing the CausIQ profile page for the foundation that you want to do in-depth research on. A couple of ways to do this. You can access a profile page using the smart search box at the top of the dashboard when you first log into the platform. Or if you're already in the foundation search like we are now, I could click back either to the grants tab or the foundations tab and select from one of the foundation listings. I'm going to go ahead and just select this Herb Alpert Foundation and open up their CausIQ profile page. So again, this is where we keep all of the information that we have on a specific entity in CausIQ. We can see it at the top, a snapshot of the most recent year's financials, some descriptive information about the foundation, some colored tags indicating categories this foundation is categorized under within CausIQ. I can see if I've added them to any lists or saved this organization to any searches. I can see recent data updates about this organization. And I can also add this organization, I can add notes to this organization. So this is a great feature to help you keep track of your research and add context to what you're doing in the platform. So maybe it's just yourself working, or perhaps you are sharing CausIQ with a colleague and you want to be able to add notes to specific organizations. So you just click on the text box, you add note here. Let's take a closer look at this one for spring 2025. Click add note, and it's now added this note to this profile. You have the option to edit a note or delete it, but these are a really great way to just help yourself stay organized. And if you are on a team with multiple licenses, collaborate with your notes. So what we want to do in-depth research is come down to the bottom of the page. And what we're going to find is this grant making tab over on the left. And this is where we're coming to do that in-depth research. So for this family foundation, I can see a summary of their most recent year of grant making at the top. I can see that they made 85 grants. The median grant amount was $25,000. And in this section in the center here, I can see trends for their grant making. So it looks like in terms of the types of nonprofits they support, they're mostly supporting arts organizations. I can see most of the grantees are California-based, and inside of that, LA metro area. And over here on the right, bottom right, I can see the NTEE codes of the grantees supported. NTEE means National Taxonomy of Exempt Entities, and this is a code that the IRS assigns to nonprofits when they get their tax exempt status. So in line with that arts focus, we can see the types of organizations they're supporting. Further down the page, you'll see a section of filters that sits on top of a grantee list. So this is the list of grantees that this family foundation has supported. So we can see the name of the grantee in this column here, the EIN, a description of the grant made, and then the amount. You'll see a details link next to some of these grants. And this brings up this pop-up box, which is going to show you any history of grant making between this foundation and this specific grantee. So this really gives you a sense of whether or not foundations tend to give recurring grants year after year, or if they're a more one-time grant maker. I could filter this grant list. Maybe I want to specifically look at the arts organizations that were funded and the arts organizations specifically in LA, right? So I can continue to work with this grantee list within the funder's profile page. Now, another section on this page that's useful for in-depth research is the personnel tab. So the personnel tab is going to display individuals that we've identified as being associated with the organization. This can include paid staff, and it can also include board members. A lot of times family foundations are just run and governed by family members, and there are no full-time staff. However, it can still be useful to come into the personnel tab and see if you recognize any individuals here. It can also be useful to circulate this list among your own nonprofits community, your board, to see if anybody has connections that could get you that introduction and really open the door to conversations about a potential grant. Now you can get this information out of CausIQ pretty easily. At the top of the page, you'll see a download button. And if you click on that, you'll see two different report options. The one-pager PDF is a high-level report that includes a financial snapshot, some KPIs, and some personnel information. The detailed Excel report option packages everything on the page, including all the data tabs below here, into an Excel workbook. So that report can be really great if you want to share granular details about a prospective funder with colleagues, team members, board members. Maybe you're going into a meeting and you want to have this information on hand without having to have the CausIQ interface open in front of you. That detailed Excel report will give you everything you need in that Excel workbook. From a profile page, you can also add organizations to lists. So in addition to the foundation search functionality of adding organizations from the list view, you can click this add button and you can check off the name of an existing list you already have going to add it to, or you can create a new list, give that a name. Once you do, it's going to tag this profile page with the name of the list that the organization belongs to. There is one additional way to pull this information out of CausIQ. However, note that it's only available to our Pro subscribers. Let's scroll back down to the Grant Making tab. And midway down the page, you'll find an option to open this singular foundation in the foundation search. So let's do that. I'll click on this button. And you can see that we're back in the foundation search now. And what's happened is that the system has added one filter, a foundation EIN filter, specifically for the Herb Alpert Foundation. So now we're only going to be looking at the grants made by this foundation. You can check that just by coming into the Foundations tab, and you can see that it's just this one funder here. So Pro subscribers have the option to click on the Download tab and download that full list of grants made by the Herb Alpert Foundation to Excel. To do so, you just click open the Download tab. You have an option to select what information you want to pull out of the system. If you're looking to get that listing of grants made, you'd select this first option, Listing of Grants Made. In the center here in step 2, it's going to give you a preview of the pre-selected columns that will be included on that Excel report. And then in step 3, it's going to be a confirm step that tells you how many records will be downloaded. Now note that this download functionality in the foundation search is limited to 3,000 records being downloaded at a time. However, in this case, we're just downloading grants from one foundation and we're far below that limit here. So then when you're ready, you would just click that start download and it's going to pull that information out of CausIQ. You could also pull out the key staff and board members in bulk. Now we know we looked at this profile page and there's only a handful of them, so not necessary, but that option is available to you as well. And when it comes to personnel downloads from the foundation search, keep in mind that you can only download personnel from up to 1,000 foundations at once. And there you have it. Now you know 3 ways that you can use CausIQ to find new funding opportunities for your nonprofit organization. We hope that this video was helpful, and please reach out to the CausIQ team at any time if you have questions. You'll find a chat box in the bottom right of the website where you can reach us whenever you're working inside of the platform.